Hey everyone, it's Ron Milligan with RE/MAX Select here, coming to you from our offices here in Portland's Pearl District. And it is time for me to bring you the latest in our real estate market numbers. This is a sampling we take for the Portland metro area, both the north side of the border in Washington and south side of the border in Oregon. So it's the full metro area included here. We'll look at the supply numbers, so like the number of active listings we have. We'll look at some demand numbers, the total number of pendings, and the new pendings that we saw enter into contract last week. And then also how the properties that did sell last week did on the market, how they performed. And then last up, we'll talk about some of the things that we're seeing as we're out showing properties, doing open houses, writing offers, chatting with our clients, our buyers and our sellers. Some interesting developments there that we'll be sharing with you, and it'll be something that we'll be monitoring going forward. So let's start off with our supply numbers. The number of active listings did increase finally. We're at 1910 versus last week at the same time we're at 1796. That's an increase of 114 listings. Not a surprise. That's normal. That's what we wanted to see. If you remember last year at about the third week in March, the market shifted. Up until about that third week in March, the number of active listings had been decreasing. We hit that turning point, and after that third week in March, the number of active listings started increasing by about 100 listings per week, all the way through to, give or take, but all the way through to the end of summer. So, as far as normal is concerned in our market, it's about as normal as we can get comparing this year to last year. Seeing an increase of active listings at this time of year is normal. We actually want to see that. We want to have more, as more buyers enter the market, more for them to choose from, more for them to purchase. So comparing this year to last year, how are we doing? Our inventory of active listings is down 11.7% versus last year. Surprising. Definitely not expecting to see fewer active listings this year versus last year, but that's where we are. So we'll keep watching those numbers and let you know how that changes and if anything starts to seem a little bit out of whack. As far as pending listings goes, sort of our measure of demand, the total number of pending listings is down. Wasn't down much, 15 listings. We went from 5111 to 5096, same time last week versus this week. And then if we're comparing to last year, we're down 13.5% versus last year's total number of pending listings. Again, not a huge surprise just because there was so much more to choose from last year, and the demand was really high last year versus this year. So the number of new pendings, the deals that went under contract last week, for the second week now, that number is down. So a couple weeks ago we're at 929, last week 892, and this week 845. So it looks like we're starting a little bit of a trend. We'll keep an eye on that and see if that continues over the next couple of weeks, or if, as it should, that demand might kick up. More about interest rates later. How did the properties that sold last week do? Keep in mind, we're at the beginning of April. These are properties that went under contract likely at the end of February, beginning of March. Interest rates were quite a bit lower at that time, and at that point we're coming up on expectations that the Fed was going to start raising interest rates. They hadn't quite met yet on the 15th and 16th of March, and announced at that time, on the 15th to 16th, that they were going to start increasing interest rates, but most folks knew that that was coming. And I feel like that did cause a little bit of a frenzy, buyer's frenzy, trying to get under contract before rates went up, because as we all know, it's not just about the cost of the home, it's also about the cost of the money used to purchase the home. So that number, the number of deals that went under contract, a little bit lower than we had seen last week and the week before. So this will be one of those numbers that we're going to be watching as a measure of buyer demand. So how did those homes that did sell on the market perform? They performed really well. On average, they sold within 18 days, so they're on the market for 18 days before they got an acceptable offer. Last year, that number is 25, and the median last year and this year is both 5, and we've been seeing that number for weeks and weeks and weeks now. So not a big surprise there. What was a big surprise was the average sale price. Holy buckets. $641,543 versus last year's $547,065. That is a 17.2% increase for the same week last year versus this year. That might be, that 641 number might be the highest I think I've ever seen. So that was a big number, and it coincides, it makes sense versus what we're seeing for the homes that went under contract at the end of February, beginning of March. They were going for way over asking price, so not a surprise to see that large 641 number. That 17.2% increase that we're seeing this year versus last year, again, small sample, that's a volatile number. It goes all over the place based on, just a few transactions that are really big that closed during that week and kind of skew the numbers one way or the other. But that number, that 17.2% increase, is above and beyond what we've been seeing so far this year. January, that number was 14. January and February of this year versus last year, 10%. I suspect that the January, February, March comparison is probably going to be around 12%, maybe a little bit higher. It'll be interesting to see if this number continues throughout April and May. May's typically when we see the highest average sale price in our market. It'll be interesting to see if that continues and maybe starts dragging some of those lower numbers that we saw at the end of the year up. The average sale price as a percentage of the asking price ended up at 104.54%. Last week that number was 105%, so it did come down a little bit, but look at the median. Holy buckets, that came in at 107.48%, which I think is probably the highest number I have ever seen in our market. Last year at this time, that number was around 105.56%, so we're significantly above where we were last year as far as the final sale price versus the asking price goes. So what are we seeing out there right now? We're seeing open houses with an enormous volume of people coming through. Like, when we're having listings that are hitting the market that are prepped nicely, ready to go, good neighborhood, good price point, under that, maybe under that $600,000 price point, we're seeing 30 plus parties come through open houses. And in some instances, we're having open houses on the first weekend that a house hits the market on Saturday and Sunday. 60 parties coming through the open houses. That is incredible. But what we're seeing also is a smaller number of agent showings. Normally, we like to see those agent showings up high because that means those are ready, willing, active buyers who are likely to write an offer. And they're out touring with their agent so that they don't waste any time. And then they head back to the office and they write up their offer and they go ahead and submit it. So what this could mean, I don't know this for certain, but what this could mean is that a lot of buyers are taking a step back. Interest rates are, at 5%, give or take right now, taking a step back to see what's going to happen both with interest rates and with the markets. They don't want to bother their agents, so they're going to the open houses and they are just filling these open houses up. It's incredible. So we're seeing fewer offers where if we'd seen this volume of traffic last year or even a couple of months ago, we would have expected to see lots and lots of offers. We're seeing a constrained number of offers coming in. Properties are still going for over asking price, but maybe not as aggressively, but they're still going over asking price. And I think part of the reason is a lot of the buyers who are out there are already conditioned to be writing well over asking price. So we're advising our buyers when they're out there looking at properties to, maybe in other instances where they would have said something like, hey, we're looking at this property, we think that it's probably going to go $60,000 over asking price. That's beyond our budget. We're advising those buyers, let's just go ahead and write an offer and see what happens. Let's put it in a number that you're comfortable with and see what happens. Because there may be opportunities for buyers out there to get under contract, before rates get too high. And all analysts that we've been tracking are still predicting appreciation for this year on average, like an average of some of the big players in the market, probably at least 6.1% appreciation so far this year. You can check out a video I did a couple of weeks ago about market predictions coming down the line. We should be getting a new set of those predictions, so it'll be interesting to see what those analysts are going to say with interest rates where they are right now, what they think the average rate of appreciation is going to be at the end of the year. So a couple of things that we're drawing from what we've been seeing, and these are certainly, we're going to watch the market very closely over the next couple of weeks and see which direction it heads in. But one of the things that sellers need to do is just be very careful about pricing and not be as aggressive as they have in the past, because you're going to see fewer offers the higher you go. Buyers have been conditioned, if their budget is $650, to look for homes in the $550 price range and then bid up whatever they're comfortable with up to their budget limit. So if you're being too aggressive as a seller and going on at the highest end of the range, you may see a lot fewer offers, or maybe none at all, because those folks that are looking up to $650, or who have budgets up to $650, they're actually stopping at $550 or $600. They're not even seeing your listing. So there can be situations, it just depends on each market and what's going on in each neighborhood, where it's better to price a little bit conservatively and get more offers, more competition to get you the better number and the best terms. For buyers, what we're saying to our buyers is go ahead, bite the bullet, write the offer. It may not be likely that you're going to get it, and if we're in the past, a couple of months ago, you may have looked at this and said, there's no way we're going to get this property. Opportunities may be available. And it may be worth it to go ahead and write that offer, submit it, and see what happens. So of course we'll keep an eye on the market, let you know how things are changing the next couple of weeks, what's going on with interest rates. The demand is out there, huge number of folks that are out looking at properties, still interested, still engaged, but maybe moving to the sidelines to just see how things play out with interest rates, if they settle out a little bit, and see how things play out with the market. But we'll keep you informed. And as always, all real estate is local. If you have questions about what's going on in your neck of the woods, in your municipality, in your state, your neighborhood, or even your building, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to share what we know. And we'll see you next week.